People think they hide themselves, with a smile, with manners, with words, but the truth is simpler. The moment someone enters a room, they start confessing, not with their mouth, with their body, with what they avoid, with what they chase, with what they pretend not to need. Most humans are not mysteries. They are patterns, and patterns are readable. If you know what to look for, you can read anyone in seconds. Not because you are psychic, because they are predictable, because they leak their truth everywhere. And Nietzsche understood something most people never accept. Humans do not want truth. They want comfort. They want their lies to be respected. But you are not here to respect lies. You are here to see. So watch carefully, because the first psychological truth is brutal. People don't reveal who they are when they speak. They reveal who they are when they react. A man can fake confidence. He cannot fake his reflex. A woman can fake kindness. She cannot fake what irritates her. A leader can fake strength. He cannot fake what makes him defensive. Reaction is the purest form of confession, and the fastest way to read someone is to disturb their emotional surface. Not with aggression, with silence, with a pause, with a calm look that doesn't blink. Most people are trained for conversation. They are not trained for pressure. So when you stop feeding them comfort, their true nature crawls out. A person who is secure stays stable. A person who is weak starts performing. They start explaining. They start laughing too much. They start talking faster. They start searching your face for approval. That is not personality. That is fear. And fear always exposes the inner structure. Here is something no one tells you. If you want to know who controls a relationship, watch who apologizes first. Not after mistakes, after tension, after silence, after nothing. The one who breaks the silence first is usually the one who cannot handle uncertainty. They need emotional closure. They need safety. And whoever needs safety can be controlled. People think control is about dominance. No, control is about who can tolerate discomfort longer. The one who stays calm wins. The one who rushes submits. And most people are rushing all the time. They rush to speak, rush to explain, rush to prove, rush to be liked. They call it being nice, but it is not niceness. It is dependence, and dependence is weakness. If you want to read someone instantly, watch what they need from you. Attention, validation, praise, permission. Everyone has an addiction. Some are addicted to money. Some are addicted to control. Some are addicted to being seen as a good person. And the most dangerous addiction of all is the addiction to being respected. Because when someone is addicted to respect, they will sacrifice logic. They will sacrifice peace. They will sacrifice relationships just to protect their image. And that brings us to a dark truth. Most people do not defend their beliefs. They defend their identity. You can destroy someone's argument, and they will not care, but threaten their self-image. And they will turn violent, not physically. Psychologically, they will mock you. They will shame you. They will twist your words. They will recruit others. Because the ego is not built for truth. It is built for survival. And the ego survives through perception. Nietzsche saw the human mind as a battlefield, not between good and evil, but between the real self and the self they need the world to believe in. That is why people lie, even when they don't have to. That is why people exaggerate. That is why they name drop. That is why they post. That is why they pretend they are unbothered. Because being ordinary feels like death. And so they build a mask called personality. But personality is often just a strategy, a survival strategy, a dominance strategy, a seduction strategy, a strategy to avoid feeling small. If you want to read someone, don't listen to what they claim. Watch what they protect. People protect what they fear losing. And fear is always honest. There is a simple test. Mention something that threatens their status. Nothing obvious. Just a small comment, a small comparison, a small shift. And watch their eyes. Watch the micro-expression. Watch the sudden change in tone. The smile that tightens. The laugh that is too sharp. The body that leans back. In that moment, you are watching the ego bleed. Because the truth is, the ego cannot tolerate being irrelevant. That is why many people don't want love. They want to be chosen. They want to win. They want someone to confirm that they matter. And that is why rejection destroys them. Not because they lost a person, but because they lost their mirror, a mirror that reflected worth. Now listen carefully. People do not desire what is good for them. They desire what makes them feel powerful, even if it destroys them. That is why the weak chase toxic relationships. That is why insecure men chase women who disrespect them. That is why insecure women chase men who ignore them. Because the chase creates tension. And tension feels like meaning. Boredom feels like death. So they create chaos, just to feel alive. This is one of Nietzsche's cruelest psychological truths. Many people would rather suffer than be insignificant. So they choose pain over emptiness. They choose drama over peace. They choose conflict over silence. Because silence forces them to face themselves. And most people cannot face themselves. They need noise. They need distraction. They need others. They need constant stimulation, not because they are social, but because they are running from their own emptiness. If you want to read someone instantly, watch how they behave when no one is watching, not literally, but socially. Watch them when they think they are not being judged. How do they treat the waiter? How do they treat someone weaker? How do they behave around someone they don't need? That is their real self. Because politeness is often just a performance for reward. True character is what shows up when there is nothing to gain. And here is a line that will make you uncomfortable. The kindest people are not always good. Sometimes they are just afraid to be hated. They are not generous. They are negotiating. They give because they fear confrontation. They smile because they fear rejection. They help because they fear guilt. This is not morality. This is a strategy to survive without conflict. And survival strategies are not noble. They are desperate. Nietzsche didn't admire good people. He admired strong people, not strong in muscles, strong in mind, strong enough to be alone, strong enough to say no, strong enough to be disliked. Because strength is not being admired. Strength is being able to lose admiration and remain unchanged. Now pay attention. If you want to read someone quickly, observe how they handle small power. Give them a little authority, a small responsibility, a small advantage, and you will see everything. Some become generous, some become cruel, some become arrogant, some become paranoid. Power does not corrupt. Power reveals. It removes the mask. Because when someone has power, they stop pretending. And what comes out is their true nature. A weak person with power becomes a tyrant. A strong person with power becomes quiet, because they don't need to prove it. A weak person wants to be seen as powerful. A strong person does not care if you see it. And that is the difference between dominance and authority. Dominance is loud. Authority is calm. Dominance demands attention. Authority assumes it, and most people cannot tell the difference. That is why they worship the loudest voice in the room. That is why they follow the aggressive man. That is why they fear the angry woman. Because fear feels like strength. But fear is not strength. Fear is a weapon, and weapons are often used by the weak. The truly powerful do not need to threaten. They just exist. They do not chase. They do not beg. They do not negotiate their worth. They do not explain themselves to those who don't matter. And when you meet someone like that, you feel it. You feel their stillness, their patience, their absence of desperation. That is how you recognize real power, not by what they do, but by what they do not do. They do not overreact. They do not gossip. They do not compete for attention. They do not fight to be understood, because they know something the weak never learn. Being misunderstood is a form of protection. When people understand you too easily, they can predict you. When they can predict you, they can control you. So the intelligent do not reveal everything. They reveal enough. They let others fill in the blanks. Because the human mind cannot handle uncertainty. It will create stories. It will project. It will assume. And projection is another psychological confession. People don't see you. They see themselves reflected on you. They call you arrogant because they feel inferior. They call you cold because they crave approval. They call you toxic because they are addicted to chaos. When someone attacks your character, they are often describing their own shadow. And the more emotional the accusation, the more personal the confession. This is why the calm person is so dangerous, because calmness forces others to reveal themselves. When you don't react, they start reacting harder. They get louder. They get more insulting. They get more desperate, because they cannot read you. And what people cannot read, they fear. That is a law of human psychology. The unknown creates anxiety, and anxiety creates hostility. So when you remain silent, people start exposing their intentions. They start testing you. They start poking you. They want to see where your boundaries are, because boundaries tell them how much they can take from you. And here is a truth most people ignore. Everyone is always negotiating status, even friends, even lovers, even family, especially family. Every interaction has an invisible hierarchy. Someone is leading, someone is following, someone is chasing, someone is withholding. And the one who withholds usually holds the power. Not always, but often, because humans value what they cannot easily access. They confuse scarcity with value. They confuse distance with depth. They confuse difficulty with importance. That is why people respect those who don't try to impress them, because trying to impress is an admission of low status. It is saying, "Please accept me." And people can smell that. They may enjoy it, but they will not respect it. Respect is not given to those who seek it. Respect is given to those who do not need it. Now listen, if you want to read someone instantly, watch how they talk about other people, because people reveal their inner world through their judgments. If someone calls everyone stupid, they are terrified of being exposed as stupid. If someone calls everyone fake, they are hiding something. If someone calls everyone selfish, they feel used. If someone calls everyone arrogant, they are obsessed with status. People do not talk about others. They talk about their own wounds, their own fears, their own hidden hunger. This is why gossip is never just gossip. It is psychological autobiography, and it always exposes the speaker. A man who constantly talks about loyalty is afraid of betrayal. A woman who constantly talks about respect is afraid of being dismissed. A person who constantly talks about being good is often trying to convince themselves, and when someone keeps repeating a virtue, it is usually the virtue they lack. Nietzsche would call this self-deception, the lie we tell ourselves to survive, because the truth is too heavy, the truth is too humiliating. So we create a story, and we call it identity. But identity is fragile. It needs constant reinforcement. That is why people seek validation, because without validation, their identity collapses. And when identity collapses, they face the void. They face the fact that they may not be special. They may not be good. They may not be strong. They may not be loved. So they avoid the void at all costs. They distract themselves. They chase attention. They chase relationships. They chase achievements. Not because they want them, but because they need proof that they exist. And here is the cruel part. The more someone needs proof, the weaker they are, because strong people do not need proof. They have inner certainty. Weak people need external confirmation. That is why they are so easy to manipulate. Give them praise. Give them attention. Give them a role. Give them a label. And they will obey, because they are starving. Starving for meaning. Starving for importance. Starving for someone to tell them, "You matter." That is the psychology behind flattery. Flattery is not kindness. It is control. The person who flatters is testing you. They are offering sugar to see if you are hungry and if you accept it too eagerly. They learn something. They learn you can be bought not with money, with words. Now consider the next truth. People do not love you for who you are. They love you for how you make them feel about themselves. That is why some people fall in love with cruel partners, because cruelty creates obsession. It creates emotional highs and lows, and the brain confuses intensity with love. This is why calm love feels boring to the wounded, because they were trained by chaos. They were trained by inconsistency. They were trained by conditional affection, so they crave what hurts, and they reject what heals. If you want to read someone, watch what they are attracted to, because attraction is not random. Attraction is psychological memory. A person is drawn to what matches their inner damage. They call it chemistry. but it is repetition, a loop, a pattern. And the more unconscious the person, the more they repeat the same pain. They keep choosing the same type of partner, the same type of friend, the same type of enemy, because they are not seeking happiness. They are seeking familiarity, even if familiarity destroys them. Now here is a line that flips the mind. People do not fear being alone. They fear being alone with themselves. That is why they stay in bad relationships. That is why they tolerate disrespect. That is why they cling. Because being alone forces self-reflection. And self-reflection is painful. It exposes what they avoided. Their regrets, their failures, their wasted time, their weakness. So they choose company over truth. They choose noise over clarity. They choose anyone over facing their own emptiness. And that emptiness is what drives most human behavior. Not love, not morality, not dreams. Emptiness. A quiet hunger that never stops. That is why people chase status. Because status is social proof of value, and value is what they doubt inside. So they build an external throne to hide an internal collapse. If you want to read someone instantly, watch how they respond to disrespect. Not big disrespect, small disrespect. A joke, a slight delay, a forgotten message. Some laugh it off, some explode. Some become passive-aggressive. Some go cold. This reveals everything. A person who is stable does not need constant reassurance. A person who is unstable takes everything personally, because their ego is already wounded. So they interpret everything as an attack. And here is the dangerous truth. The easiest people to manipulate are the most emotional, not because emotions are weak, but because emotions can be predicted. An angry man can be guided. A jealous woman can be controlled. A fearful person can be commanded. Because emotion is a leash, and whoever pulls the emotion pulls the person. That is why strong individuals do not show emotion easily. Not because they have none, but because they refuse to be predictable. They refuse to give others the map. Because once someone knows what triggers you, they own you. They can create reactions on demand. They can make you chase. They can make you beg. They can make you lose control. And losing control is losing status. Because humans respect those who stay composed, even when hurt, even when insulted, even when threatened. A calm face in chaos creates fear. Because it signals confidence. It signals calculation. It signals that you are not acting from emotion. You are acting from decision. And decision is power. Now watch this carefully. If you want to read someone in seconds, watch their eyes when they speak. Not for truth, for intention. Some people speak to connect. Some speak to impress. Some speak to dominate. Some speak to escape silence. And silence is important, because silence is where the real conversation happens. Words are often lies. Silence is often truth. When someone pauses before answering, they are calculating. When someone speaks too quickly, they are nervous. When someone fills every gap, they are afraid of stillness. When someone is comfortable with quiet, they are comfortable with themselves. And comfort with oneself is rare, because most people hate themselves quietly. They just hide it with confidence, with makeup, with jokes, with achievements, with followers, with money. But when the lights go off, they cannot sit with their own mind. That is why they keep moving, keep working, keep dating, keep talking. Because the moment they stop, the truth rises. And the truth is not flattering. Now here is another psychological law. People respect what they fear losing. If someone is always available, they become invisible. If someone is always kind, they become predictable. If someone always forgives, they become a tool. Humans do not value what they can control. They value what can leave. This is why boundaries create attraction, because boundaries signal self-respect. And self-respect creates mystery, and mystery creates value. That is why the person who says no calmly has more power than the person who says yes desperately. The world is not ruled by the loud. It is ruled by the unbothered. Now let's go deeper. Nietzsche understood resentment. He saw it everywhere. Resentment is the hidden poison of weak people. It is what happens when someone feels powerless, but cannot admit it. So they attack, they criticize, they shame, They pretend they are morally superior, but morality is often just disguised envy. They don't hate your behavior. They hate what your behavior represents. Your freedom, your confidence, your independence. So they try to bring you down, not because you harmed them, but because your existence humiliates them. It reminds them of what they are not, and weak people cannot tolerate that. So they label you arrogant. They label you selfish. They label you cold, because if they can make you feel guilty, they can reduce you. They can pull you down to their level. This is the psychology of social control. Guilt is a leash, and the world is full of people trying to leash each other. If you want to read someone, watch how they use guilt. Do they constantly remind you of what they did for you? Do they keep score? Do they make you feel selfish for having boundaries? That person is not loving. They are controlling. Because love does not demand submission. Love does not need manipulation. Only insecurity does. Now consider this. The strongest people do not seek revenge.